I'm Dr. Jodie Allen, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I work for the West Kent Emotional Wellbeing team. Our service covers all of Kent and Medway, but I'm the locality lead just for West Kent. And this is some training that I've created recently for school staff and parents. And it's all about how we can learn a bit about co-regulating when things get difficult, basically, with young people. So thinking about difficult conversations, conflict, and trying to make the most of those moments, basically. So today we will be covering 3 main sections, and then at the end we'll have a bit of time for reflection as well. In section 1, I'm going to be talking about examples of what might be a difficult conversation for different people, our emotional responses to those types of difficult conversations, and then trying to think together about what's behind the words when when voices get raised, or when there's kind of difficult topics that we're talking about, conflict, what might be going on for the young person and for us behind those words. Then in the second section, we're going to be thinking a bit more about compassion. We'll have a chance to practice some self-compassion and learn a little bit about tolerating distress, not jumping to fixing feelings straight away. And then finally, towards the end, we'll be learning some basic emotional regulation strategies, thinking a little bit about curiosity, and a technique called rolling with resistance. So instead of fighting young people when things are difficult, we are going to roll with it and see where that gets us. Okay, so section 1. I wanted to just start off with a quick poll in the chat, if you don't mind. I'm going to read out some topics of conversation. And what I'd like you to do in the chat is just put either a thumbs up, thumbs down, or you can do an emoji that kind of fits how you would feel to talk about some of these conversations with a young person, these topics. So I'm going to just try and view the chat now, if I can get this up. There we go. So can I ask how you would feel? And also, actually, if you don't, if you're not used to using a chat, hopefully you can find the chat, and then there's a little smiley face there. If you click on that, it will give you options for lots of emojis. You can say see all. So I'd like you to put down an emoji in the chat for how you would feel about talking to a young person about them getting good grades. Is that something that would be easy, not sure, or something that would be difficult for you? Okay, great. So you're all used to using the chat. This is great. It's coming out through quickly. So smiley faces, thumbs up, brilliant. So pretty easy. Rock on. I like that one. Okay. Or maybe that's a not sure, actually. What about bad grades? How would you feel to have a conversation with a child about bad grades? Still feel pretty confident, maybe not so sure, or might be quite difficult for you? We're still getting quite a few smiley faces. That's good. How about if a child was being bullied? Is that something that you feel confident talking to them about, or is that a little bit harder maybe? Okay, so again, still lots of thumbs up, lots of confident people here, obviously well practiced in having difficult conversations. How about if the child was bullying someone else? How confident are we about having conversations about that? Trying to keep up. You guys are really going for it in the chat. Thank you. Okay. What about if a child is self-harming? How confident do you feel about having those kinds of conversations? We're having a few more people coming in with some like okay emojis, maybe not quite so confident. Okay. What about if a child has criticised you or insulted you? How do we find having that type of conversation? Okay, so I think this is a little bit more mixed. We've got some more okays, still some thumbs up. I'm just scrolling down now. There we go. Lovely. Okay, so I had a few others in there, but I'm aware of time. I think what we'll hopefully have found is that there's a bit of variety there. So although a lot of you were quite confident about having quite a few of those conversations, there will be variety between us in terms of how confident we feel about those different topics. Some of us might feel really confident talking to a child about self-harm, but really struggle if they are bullying someone else, for example. Or it might be the other way around. Other people feel pretty confident having difficult conversations across the board. Maybe they've done this for years and they're like really experienced with that. And other people, if you maybe are newer to your role, you know, or it's a really tricky subject for you specifically, that might be tough. So that's really normal, understandable that we're all going to have different things that kind of push our buttons and are more or less difficult for us. And that's kind of, you know, we're all human. That's kind of how it makes life interesting, that we don't all find the same things easy. But I wanted to just spend a bit of time thinking about that, because I think it's important that we remember that we have our own reactions to situations with children. It's not just them reacting in difficult moments. We also will have our own reactions. Now, in terms of that, just wanted you to have a think about maybe some topics of conversation that are a bit more difficult for you. Some of the ones I didn't go through are things like, you know, what if a child's had a recent bereavement, or we need to talk to them about sex education. What's some other difficult topics? I'm sure there's lots of things on there. What kind of feelings might come up for you if you are having a conversation that you find quite difficult with a young person? You know, how might that feel in your body physically as well? So you might get some different emotions coming up. You might also feel something in different parts of your body. If anyone wants to put some examples in the chat, please feel free. There's some on the slide already. So in terms of in our body, we might feel kind of irritated, might feel our heart rate go up if something's kind of making us feel anxious, or if we're a bit angry. Might get a bit sweaty or shaky if it's a really difficult conversation or a big conflict with someone. All of those things are part of what we call the fight or flight response. So fight or flight is this amazing response that we have in our bodies that's there to keep us safe from real danger. It's, you know, it's evolved over hundreds of thousands of years for most animals, and it is where we release adrenaline, and it keeps our bodies, like, makes us stronger, faster, and more alert, and it changes response, you know, reactions in our body, and in order to do that, so our heart rate goes up so that we can have more oxygen pumping around our body, and that gives us more energy. I can just hear some little noises in the background. I'm wondering if people can mute. Oh, I might be able to do it. There we go. Okay. So we have this very natural reaction of fight or flight when things are difficult for us. If we're feeling a bit like threatened in some way or a bit stressed, we're going to have that reaction in our body. And this is also the case for the young person as well. So if they're feeling stressed or threatened by whatever we're talking about, or if we're having a proper like argument, not necessarily, you know, with people's at work, it might be someone in your personal life as well. It's likely that we will have some sense of this fight or flight response going on in our bodies, because it's a really basic evolved response that happens instinctively. It's not something that we can really control in the moment. So let's see. We also know that when we're in that fight or flight response, our deep thinking slows down a bit. We get a little bit disconnected. So we've got the brainstem part of our brain. That's where the fight or flight response is kind of triggered. This is the part of our brain that's all about survival. It keeps us breathing, keeps us digesting food, all the kind of basic things that might need a signal are done in that brainstem, the kind of basic part of our brain. Then we've got the limbic system, which is in the middle part of our brain, and this is where we have more of our feelings, our emotions, and our memories. And then we've got this neocortex, the top and front part of our brain, and this is the most highly evolved part of our brain. It's the bit that is less evolved in other animals that aren't as intelligent as humans are. And this is where we do all our deep thinking, and it's where we are able to think things through. We can plan, we use complex language, those types of skills. So that's all happening in that front part of our brain. The trouble is, when we have our fight or flight response happening for us, that bit of our brain isn't seen as a priority. What's a priority is keeping us safe. So that bottom part of our brain takes over. And this means that our thinking style gets very simplistic and more instinctive. So we're more likely to think in black and white terms. We're also less likely to be able to see someone else's point of view and empathise with how they're feeling, because that's quite a complex skill that is held in the front part of our brain. It's also known as mentalisation, being able to think what someone else is thinking and maybe weigh things up a little bit, think critically, that type of thing. So instead, when we've got the fight or flight response going on, we're very likely to just assume what the other person's thinking. We might be less likely to see subtle facial expressions, that type of thing. Now, when we've got a difficult conversation or we're having a conflict with someone else, this response is likely to be happening for us and for the other person. So if you're having a conversation with a teenager and it's getting a bit heated, or it's about a difficult topic, even if you yourself are feeling reasonably calm, they might be struggling with this, and they're probably not likely to realize it in the moment, because that self-reflection is another deep thinking skill that's been a bit shut off. If you want to know a little bit more about mentalization, I've included a link at the bottom of the slide. It's a much longer video. It's a really helpful thing to understand a little bit more about the kind of amazing skill that mentalization is and the things that can get in the way of that. Okay, let me go to the next slide. So we know that in that moment of conflict, we are going to have lots of feelings emotionally and physically because of the fight or flight response. We might also have lots of thoughts buzzing around our brain that are quite simplistic. We might be struggling to kind of understand what the other person is thinking and feeling. But hopefully right now you're feeling pretty calm. You're hopefully in a safe place and not feeling threatened by this PowerPoint. So I'm hoping that you are going to be able to kind of think a bit more deeply about what might be going on in those moments for a young person. So I was wondering, before I click through on the slide, if you might mind giving me some suggestions in the chat of things that might be going on for a young person who's having a conflict or a difficult conversation with you. Maybe they're raising their voice, maybe they've insulted you, said something rude, that type of thing. Could you let me know, what do you think might be going on in the background for young people? Yes, so someone in the chat is saying relationship with parents, or maybe their parents' own relationship might be having issues with friends, unstable home life, parents in prison, that type of thing. So we're thinking about like ACEs there, adverse childhood experiences. Maybe they're feeling embarrassed. That's a really good example. Stressed about grades, school pressures, feeling frustrated with teachers. I'm sure we hear that a lot. Bereavement, yes, they might have had some major kind of loss. There might be a trauma background, absolutely. These are great suggestions. I'm struggling to keep up. Peer pressure, oh my gosh, I mean, it's one of the main things that children worry about, isn't it? Particularly teenagers. You know, what do my friends think of me? What do they think is best to do? Someone else has suggested just some really physical stuff. Maybe they're tired, maybe they're feeling hungry. Maybe they don't understand what's going on around them, feeling confused and they're lashing out. Maybe they've witnessed or experienced domestic violence, scared or worried about the consequences of what they're telling you. I think that's a really, really good example. Okay, amazing. And actually, you guys have come up with loads that I haven't put on this slide, so I'm glad I asked. Here are some of the ones that I thought about. Learning needs, that is on here. So I've got things like exam stress, we said that, relationships, stress at home, needing to feel powerful. So this is something that I don't think we really mentioned, but also linked to the next one, needing control. So for a lot of children who maybe for whatever reason earlier in their life or maybe currently in their life, maybe they have felt quite powerless or out of control. Maybe they've experienced trauma. Maybe they've had something just like really difficult home life. Maybe they've not felt that they've got many adults that are there for them and looking after them. They might feel more of a need to try and take control of a situation or feel powerful. And although a lot of these children will know that raising their voice and having a conflict with someone logically is not the best way to handle that situation, there'll be a very strong draw for that feeling of feeling in control or feeling powerful. So you will find that it's actually quite a kind of common thing for children that they sometimes get into these patterns where they're causing conflict and things. It's not very nice to be on the receiving end of that, but it is something that is kind of understandable when we maybe think, actually, what are they seeking there? Is it that they're seeking a chance to feel powerful because they never feel that they have power elsewhere in their life, for example? They might have SEN needs, SEMH. I think people mention this sort of thing in the chat. Maybe they're being bullied or discriminated against. Maybe they're feeling different. For some children that can be a great thing, but for a lot of kids it's hard when you feel different to your peers, maybe feeling like the odd one out. Maybe they're working out different aspects of their identity. That can be quite overwhelming. It's a lot for a young brain to grasp, all the different aspects of who they are. Hormones as well, brain development. We have another talk in my service all about the teenage brain, and it's very complex and there's lots of stuff going on. So that can be really hard for teenagers to manage, I think. They might be having sensory overwhelm as well. So I don't think I'm going to go into sensory stuff too much in this talk. But again, lots of information out there about sensory stuff. And I'm sure we've all been there sometimes when things are just really loud or bright or we're being jostled around by people, pushed and pulled. It's quite overwhelming. So if you are a child who reaches sensory overwhelm at a lower level than others, that can be a lot to handle, and it might be meaning that you're coming out with that fight or flight response, and that might be causing that conflict or that difficult conversation. Okay, thanks for everyone's suggestions. So let's pull this all together now, thinking about what might be going on in a situation. I'm going to use an example of let's say I am working at a school with a young person and I've got my own stuff going on. So maybe I'm a bit stressed. I don't know, I've got, I'm under pressure for something at work. And also in my background, maybe I was bullied at school, let's say. So you've got me and my past there kind of, that makes up who I am. In the moment, I'm going to have certain emotions about a particular conversation with that child. And I'm going to use the example of having a conversation with a child who is bullying someone else. So the emotions that might be coming up for me are maybe I might feel kind of angry at that person. I might feel disappointed in them because I thought I knew them and I didn't think that they would do something like that. Maybe I've got thoughts about that, I can't believe this, they're nasty, these kind of instinctive thoughts that we can't help having. We're going to have whatever thoughts pop into our mind. Maybe I'm thinking back to my own past and it's reminding me of the difficult bullying that I had when I was at school. Might be having some physical feelings, so maybe my heart rate's going up a bit because this is feeling a bit stressful for me. Or maybe I'm feeling a little bit sweaty because I'm a bit nervous about having this conversation. And my actions might be to be a bit more snappy with this child than I would normally be, or to blame them, jump to conclusions, things like that. So that's all going on for me in that moment. And then we've also got another person here in this conflict or this difficult conversation, which is the young person. So we've got them and whatever's happened in their past. Maybe they have experienced some trauma. Maybe they've got a lot of stuff going on at home. Maybe they're feeling quite powerless or out of control. So they're going to have their own emotions. Maybe they're feeling really worried about how I'll react. Maybe they are feeling guilty for saying something mean to another person. Or maybe they're feeling quite annoyed. Maybe it's been misinterpreted. They don't think they've done anything wrong. They might be feeling similar physical feelings to me, that fight or flight response. And their actions might be to try and, minimize what's happened, try and get away from me because they don't want to have this conversation, or maybe they lash out, something like that. And then these two reactions, you've got me and the other person, we're going to interact with each other because however they've responded to me, I'm going to have a response to that, and vice versa. So when we're having a difficult conversation or a conflict, there's a lot going on. It's a lot more than just what's being said. And I think what's really helpful to think about is both reflecting on what might be happening for us and for the young person, and trying to, well, I'll come on to this in a second, but trying to connect with that deeper thinking part of our brain, so that we're not doing the really simplistic kind of fight or flight thinking style. Okay, we'll come back to this a bit later. I'll try and get you guys to have a think about this with your own examples. So we're on to section 2 now. So we're going to talk a little bit about how compassion can support in these difficult moments, have a little bit of a practice, and then think a bit about distress tolerance. So another quick poll, if I can get you to put in the chat, how easy do you find it to be compassionate and empathic to certain people? So I'm going to kind of read some out. And again, you can use the emojis, thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face, sad face, whatever fits best for you. Let me just get down to the bottom of the chat. Okay, so there's lots coming through. I feel like maybe it's a bit delayed. Okay, so can I ask you how easy you find it to be compassionate to a young child? Hopefully pretty easy. Lots of emojis coming in now. Okay, brilliant. Lots of thumbs up, heart eyes emoji. I love that one. How easy do you find it to be compassionate to other adults? Maybe it depends. Maybe it's not so easy all the time to be compassionate. Maybe you're someone that's constantly compassionate to everyone, no matter what. Okay, I think it might have frozen a little bit. Lastly, I want to ask you how easy you find it to be compassionate to yourself. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or not sure. You can just type in the chat if it's easier. Okay, here we go. So we're definitely getting some more unsure faces, thumbs down, okay, maybe. Less easy, yeah, challenging. Okay, but still some smiley faces, so I'm glad to see some people can manage this as well. But brilliant, thank you everyone. And that's quite common. This is what I usually find when I do this training. I can relate to that myself as well. It's a lot easier often to be compassionate to other people, particularly younger children. But when we are trying to be compassionate to ourselves, it's really tough sometimes. We're kind of taught to, just get on with it, keep going. We're often a lot harsher with ourselves than we are with other people. But I'm hoping that I might be able to change that slightly for you. So let's see. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is compassion. So compassion has a few steps within it. The first step is that we just need to recognize difficult feelings. So we have to recognize that something is hard for us, or that the other person is having a hard time. We then need to understand that suffering and those types of difficult feelings are universal. They are something that all humans experience at some point. And that is one of the things that connects us as humans, is that we understand what it is like to feel difficult feelings. They're not pleasant, but they are something that connects us. And then the third part of compassion is to try to, in some way, make that better. So we want to try and be kind, comforting, or soothing to the other person or to ourselves, if it's in the case of self-compassion. Now, this is where compassion is different to just being kind. A lot of people are able to be kind, but you can be kind even if someone's not having a hard time. And you can be kind even without connecting to that shared sense of empathy and suffering. What sets compassion apart is that we're not shying away from the difficult feelings, and that we are trying to connect with that person before being kind and comforting. And again, it's the same with us as well as when we're doing self-compassion. It involves those first two steps too, and that's something that is a bit harder for a lot of people. So why is compassion important? If you remember these pictures, when we've got our brain and body's response to threat, our deep thinking shuts down, and we go into fight or flight mode in our body. Well, compassion is the antidote to that. Compassion helps to reconnect that deep thinking part of our brain, and it helps to slow down that fight or flight response. And instead of that adrenaline that's pumping through our bodies, it kind of reduces that response, reduces that hormone that's kind of pumping around. And instead, our bodies are able to do the opposite. So instead of our heart beating faster, compassion helps our heart rate slow down a bit. It helps our breathing get a bit more in control, helps us relax, feel less tense in our muscles, that kind of thing. And by doing this, it also means that we're able to then reconnect with that deep thinking part of our brain, and suddenly we can think about someone else's perspective a bit better. We can think about our own history and our own perspective a little bit better, instead of that basic instinctual kind of thinking. When we do this in the middle of a conflict or a difficult conversation, it helps us regulate our emotions and calm down that fight or flight response, like I just said. Also, that's kind of having compassion for ourselves, if we can be self-compassionate. It also, if we can be compassionate to the other person in that situation, it can really help avoid that conflict from escalating. We show them that we're listening and that we care about how they feel, and that we're connecting, and we understand that this is difficult for them. And that allows someone to feel heard. And when you feel that way, if you're on the receiving end of that compassion, it's a lot harder to be angry when you know that someone actually cares about you and wants to help you feel better. The expression "taking the wind out of your sails" kind of comes to mind. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that, when you're feeling really angry about something and someone's just kind to you, they're compassionate, they show that they care. Like it feels a lot better, and it helps to kind of instantly calm your body down. And so by being compassionate to ourselves, it's going to allow us to be a bit more compassionate to that other person. So we're kind of looking after ourselves first and being able to then find that compassion and that understanding for them. And it's also going to help us maintain a strong relationship with someone. If anything, it can actually make our relationships even better, because sometimes people come to conflicts with preconceived ideas about how we're going to react, and they come expecting a fight. And actually, if we can show compassion to them, it's going to really help with our relationship with them in the future. I'm kind of talking about this with examples for like working with young people in schools, but you can also apply this to like parents, for example, if you're working with parents and they might have had a really difficult time at school themselves, and they might be kind of finding it really hard to talk to you about their child's difficulties. Finding compassion for parents as well, again, it just helps really kind of calm the situation down and maintain a much better relationship with them. Okay, so I'm kind of going on and on about all the benefits of compassion, but I do understand that actually it is really hard to do that. It's a lot easier said than done. So what can make it harder to be compassionate, either to yourself or for other people? I don't know if anyone wants to suggest some stuff in the chat for me. What makes it hard to be compassionate? When someone has been cruel, yeah. So if someone's done something that goes against our moral code, we don't like, that is really hard, absolutely. Repeated behaviour, so maybe this is, they keep doing the same thing and they don't seem to be learning, and that can be really, really hard. Disliking the person, great, exactly. If we just don't have such a great relationship with them already, it's going to be a lot harder to find compassion for them when you're not feeling 100%. Absolutely. So, it's kind of on the slide, that we need to have some water in our watering can to be able to water everyone else. And so if we are really busy with time pressures, target pressures, that kind of thing, it's going to be a lot harder for us to find that time to be compassionate. Lovely, really, lots of great examples here. And some really, I feel like there's some themes here, so I'm hoping you can all kind of relate to these with each other. When things are kind of seem to be repeated again, when our cup is already full, when we can't give any more. Absolutely. Okay, thanks everyone. So here are some of my suggestions as well. Compassion fatigue, kind of what someone else was just saying. If you've given and given and given lots and lots of compassion and you've not had much back from other people, that can make it really hard to keep giving. Stress picks up that fight or flight response. That means it's harder for us to find that compassion. Lack of resources, maybe we're really tired, maybe we don't have much emotional resource left to give, maybe we're going through something really hard ourselves, that kind of thing. Lack of time, difficulty tolerating negative emotions. So some of us will struggle more than others with different emotions. For me, I feel like maybe the emotion I find it hardest to tolerate is anger from someone else, but I'm quite able to tolerate a lot of sadness. In my job, I'm used to people crying their eyes out with me, and I can quite easily cope with that, and it doesn't worry me. Other people find it really hard when someone starts crying and they instantly want to try and fix it and make them feel better, and it just feels really painful for them to kind of see someone like that. Some people struggle with all emotions, just like, it's just really hard for them to tolerate pain in someone else. We might also have strong beliefs about just getting on with it, soldering on, stiff upper lip, that kind of thing. So when you have those sorts of beliefs, it's going to be harder to find compassion because your response is to just move past this quickly and get on with it. Whereas compassion is about sitting with the difficult feeling to begin with. Okay, so I'm going to do a little practice with you guys. If you just bear with me a second, I'm just going to try and sort out my settings. Self-compassion. We're going to just try this out together if you feel comfortable doing this. It's only for a few minutes. If you don't want to give it a go, that's fine. You might want to try this in your own time. In the resources section, there'll be some links where you can do this on your own as well with some other audio practices. So the first step, I want you to just try and think of a situation that you found a bit difficult recently. It doesn't have to be anything really, really hard. It's just something somewhat tricky. So maybe you're a bit worried about a project at work. Maybe someone's not listening to you and you're feeling kind of frustrated about that, or someone's made you a bit angry about something. Maybe you've got to tell someone else some bad news, you're worried about how they're going to take it. Maybe something just to do with the wider state of the world is getting to you. So nothing really deep and personal, but something along those lines. So you have a think about that situation a little bit. If you feel comfortable, you can sit down, close your eyes, or just look down at the floor. And I want you to just have a think about what feelings this situation brings up for you. What are those kind of difficult feelings for you? What are the emotions that this situation brings up? How does that feel in your body? Maybe you're noticing some tension somewhere in your shoulders or your forehead or something, or maybe some tightness in your chest. Maybe you feel butterflies in your stomach, or you might notice some heat or something if there's some stress in your body. Just noticing those feelings, noticing how that feels, those sensations physically in your body as well. I just want you to just sit with that for a few seconds. Just notice that. So now that we can notice those feelings, we can also notice that, and just try and remember that this is a hard situation and other people would probably feel similar if they were going through the same thing, because suffering is something that is universal. It's something that all humans go through, and it's understandable that you would feel that way given this difficult thing that's going on for you. It's normal to feel difficult feelings when you're going through difficult things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It makes you human, and it's important that we have a reaction to something that's hard for us. Now we've kind of, we've felt that feeling. We understand that this is something that is normal for us to go through. It's understandable that we might feel this way for whatever reason. And now I want you to just try and think of something small that you might be able to do that would feel kind to yourself, or comforting, or soothing. Maybe you can just take a big, deep breath. Just kind of let it out. Maybe you can do some stretches in your body. You might need a little break just to kind of stretch some of that tension out of your body. Is there someone that you can talk to about this? Will that make you feel better? You can make a plan to give someone a call to talk this through. Another thing that can be helpful, even if you don't have time for a break, I know that that's not always possible, is to do what we call soothing touch. So this is where you might want to take your hands and just like clasp them together, and maybe just give yourself a little squeeze, or I'm kind of like rubbing my thumb against my other thumb. Some soothing touch, you might want to kind of put your hands on your chest and just kind of feel that weight there of your hands on your chest, and just feel that comfort that you're kind of giving yourself. Some people might even want to just put their hand on their cheek and just kind of stroke their cheek a little bit. It's a really subtle way that we can just show that we care about ourselves and that we want to try and comfort ourselves a little bit in this difficult moment that we're experiencing. So just take that moment to just think about what you might do for yourself to help soothe this feeling in this difficult situation. And now kind of gradually come back to the talk. You might want to open your eyes when you feel ready. And I'm hoping that maybe that situation, it hasn't changed, but you might feel a bit differently about it. And that's the point with compassion. We're not trying to fix the difficult things that happen to us in life. We're only human, and humans do have to go through a lot of difficult stuff sometimes. But I'm hoping that with a bit of self-compassion, it can help us tolerate that difficulty a bit better. And we're going to then be able to kind of keep going. It really helps with that kind of resilience to struggle. If you liked that, or you want to give it another go, like I said, there's some practices at the end, there's some links that you can go to. If you found that really hard, that's also normal. This is a really difficult skill for a lot of people. When I first started trying to do self-compassion, I really struggled with it myself. But I practiced and practiced and practiced, and I'm still not great, but I will do it quite regularly now if I'm like having a really tough time, and I'll just take a few minutes, or not even a minute, like even just 1 minute, and just think this through a little bit and just try and be a bit compassionate to myself, and it really, really does help. So I hope that with a bit of practice, you guys might be able to use this a bit more yourselves too. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to think about our emotions. Like I said, all emotions are kind of normal. It's normal to have difficult emotions when we go through difficult times. Some of them feel unpleasant, though. It's not nice to feel sad or lonely or angry. But even if they don't feel good, emotions help us to understand what's going on in our life, what is important to us, and what we need. And it can be a lot easier to cope with difficult feelings if we understand why they're there, and we appreciate that our emotions are usually there for a reason and they're telling us something. So just as an example, if we are feeling angry and we just can't seem to let something go, I'm just constantly angry, like I'm getting really irritable with people, I'm having a really bad week and I'm lashing out, at my loved ones, for example. Okay, let's notice that. It doesn't feel good to feel angry, but maybe it's telling us something. Maybe I am having a lot of people put stuff on me that's not fair. Maybe I need to stand up for myself, actually. Maybe something's not equal. Maybe someone's done something wrong and I want an apology, for example. So if we can notice that anger instead of just trying to push past it, it might help us actually resolve the situation better by kind of valuing that what that feeling is communicating to us. And then that helps us move on to distress tolerance. So this is, again, something that's quite hard for a lot of people. It's, like I said, it's not nice when you feel a difficult feeling. But actually, if we can tolerate that, we can move on and do things that are more important to us. So the example here is, it's raining. I can focus on how much I hate the rain. It feels terrible. I'm cold and miserable. My day's ruined. Or I can look at the rain cloud, realize that it's raining. Yep, okay, it's raining. And now let's move on and focus on other things that I would rather be doing with my day. And we can do the same with our emotions as well. So yeah, I might be having this really difficult big feeling, or the child with me might be having this really difficult big feeling, but that's okay. Let's kind of accept that that feeling is here. We don't need to try and fix it necessarily, but we can try and move on from it. Okay, I'm just going to double check how we're doing for time. Just a second.
You're okay, Jodie. Got 10 minutes.
Yeah, how much longer have I got?
13 minutes if you want to be exact.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Okay, so these are the key steps of the stress tolerance. We're going to notice the emotion. We're going to pause, tolerate, and accept that that emotion is there. So let's say we've got a child and they're panicking. We're just going to notice that they're panicking. They must feel really scared right now, really anxious about something. A lot of us will have the instinct to immediately try and reassure them and make them feel better. That's very understandable, but it's not necessarily actually helpful in that moment. And what we often find is that actually if we can just tolerate that for a little bit, sit with them feeling anxiety, actually it's a bit counterintuitive, but they'll often, their anxiety will reduce just by us being okay with it and containing that big feeling. Then we can kind of come back to the present and think a bit more clearly about what to do next. Now, for with the stress tolerance, if you've got teenagers, they are not going to have quite such good emotional regulation skills as we do as adults, but particularly people and teenagers that have had trauma in their backgrounds, this will take longer because they haven't had someone around to help them learn about their emotions and kind of that sense of feeling calm and soothed, as much as someone who's had like a really supportive caregiver will have had that experience. So it might take them longer for that emotion to kind of settle on its own. So just something to remember. It might mean we have to tolerate things for a bit longer with certain people. And then we can try and use some emotional regulation strategies, but I'm really keen to encourage you to try and tolerate things a little bit first. Let's not jump to immediately doing a breathing exercise. Let's try and kind of just accept that we all have difficult feelings sometimes, and that's okay. And actually, it makes a lot of sense usually, given what all those things that might be going on in the background for a child. Okay, so section 3 now. Already gone through the fight or flight response. Now let's think about some skills for emotional regulation. There's some other links here of things that can help. So if you want to know more about these different skills, you can follow these links. But I'm going to go through a couple of them today. The reason I've done it like a box of chocolates is because just like chocolates, we will all have different preferences for things that work for us. And that might change day by day. So one day I might fancy a particular kind of chocolate out of the box. Another day I might really fancy something else. And it's the same with emotional regulation strategies. So you will find ones that work well for you. You'll find ones that work particularly well for certain children. And then other children might respond really differently and much prefer something else. So I like to have options for people. I won't go through all of the options today, but they are there if you want to have another, have a proper look through. But the point is, all of these are helpful for slowing down that fight or flight response, helping people feel more focused on the here and now, and regulating all those difficult feelings that are going on for them. So we're going to do take a little bite-sized piece out of some of these strategies. We'll do a bit of box breathing and some muscle relaxation today. So I'm hoping you can all see me. I'm going to kind of demonstrate box breathing to begin with. So this is a strategy where we draw a box in the air. Once you're used to doing this, you can do it in your own head, but it's quite fun to do with children, like showing it out, out loud, I was going to say, but, properly in a visual way. And when we draw the box, when we go up, is when we're going to breathe in. We're then going to hold our breath as we go along the top of the box. We'll breathe out as we go down the side, and then we wait as we come along the bottom and repeat. And then we breathe in as we go up, pause, hold your breath, breathe out, and then pause. So I want you to kind of follow this with me. I'm going to do this how I do it with young people, which can be a little bit silly, but it means it really gets them engaged. So I'd encourage you to give this a go. So we'll start off a nice normal paced box. We'll breathe in as I go up, preferably through your nose. Hold that breath and then breathe out nice and slowly as we come down. And we're going to wait, not breathe in straight away. Breathe in again. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. And now this is where I might get a little bit silly. So I might breathe in. And I'm going to keep that finger going up a bit higher. So they've got to breathe in that little bit more. And then they're going to hold that breath nice and tightly. And then suddenly breathe out really quickly. And we're going to wait. Or I might do a really quick square. So breathe in, hold, out, like that. So we'll do a few different variations. I might then get them to demonstrate it back to me, like they draw the square and they're in control of my breathing, and that's quite fun. And then we have a chat, like which one felt the most relaxing, which one felt the most kind of energizing. And you'll find that it's a really good way of them experiencing, oh yeah, actually, when I slow my breathing down, I feel a lot calmer than when I'm doing it really quickly. And it really kind of sticks in their minds. So I love a bit of box breathing. I find it works really well with a lot of children. And the great thing is that you can do it anywhere. As long as they can visualize a box somewhere. They don't have to do it out like this in front of them. They can imagine it in their head, draw a box on their leg if they're sat on the bus, that kind of thing. Really subtle, but really helpful.
Jodie, sorry to interrupt you. They can't see, we can only really see your glasses and your forehead. No. So sorry.
Okay, hang on, let me see if my camera moved. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Let me just see. I've hidden myself as well, so I now can't see what I look like. Anyway, that was the only bit you need to see me for, so sorry. But there is also a link for how to do box breathing. So you can get a proper demonstration through that website. I was also going to go through muscle relaxation, but I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to leave you to look at that one through the links. It's all about getting stress out of your muscles in your body. And that again helps to just release some tension, calm things down. You can do some nice stretches, that kind of thing. Really helpful to do it with a child. It helps you both feel more relaxed as well. So again, another great link that you can follow through. Okay, so coming towards the end now, in terms of curiosity, this is when we're kind of having questions, we're kind of asking questions about the situation that's going on for the child. Being genuinely curious, not making assumptions about what's going on for them. It really helps children know that we really care about what they think, that we really do want to understand their point of view, and that really helps lower their defenses and helps us have much more helpful conversations with them. So we'll try and have really open questions for this, and giving space for them to answer, even if it's not what we were expecting them to say. So just as some examples, these are some quite closed questions. So you could ask these and get a yes or no answer and it would make sense. But we can make them a little bit more open. So for example, what do you like about football? You can't answer that with a yes or no. But even more open than that is asking really generally, how do you feel about sports? And you'll get a much more interesting conversation from someone by asking that really open question there at the end. Likewise, are you okay? Yeah, no. Or tell me what's worrying you. Or even more open, how are you feeling right now? And really asking, really opening that door to hearing whatever's going on for them. Did you have a good weekend? Yep, no. Could be really brief. Or we can ask, how was your weekend? Want to get a bit more information from them. Or maybe tell me more about your trip away. Again, it's just a lot more open, and we're going to get a lot more information from someone by asking these kinds of open questions. There's always a place for closed questions. So if you've got a child that's really struggling to open up, you might want to start with some kind of a few more specific questions. Or you might go for an open question and just need to give them a bit more time, a bit more silence before they actually start talking. Some people take a little bit longer. And then finally, coming towards thinking about rolling with resistance. We've all heard that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's the same with children. Sometimes we think we know what's best for them, and we're trying everything we can to encourage them to do what we think is best. And no matter what, they just don't seem to do it. So things like we might try arguing with them, nagging them, keep on bringing it up. We might tell them all the reasons why we think it's a good idea and why whatever they're doing isn't a good idea. We might assume that we know why they're not doing it. We might tell them, well, I know best, so you've just got to. Maybe we might try and bribe them or punish them. Or maybe we'll show them how it's done, like this guy in the pond. But all of these things are exhausting. They take up loads of our energy. They're very natural responses that we do, but they're hard work, and they're not often that effective. And actually, they can really stress out. They can put strain on our relationship with that child. Sometimes, instead of kind of fighting with them, we can use some of the skills that we've learned. So let's be curious. Let's listen to their point of view, ask lots of open questions. We can give our opinion, but we make sure they know it's just our opinion and it's not that we think it's fact. Maybe we show them we care and support them even if we disagree with them about this issue. And we might actually, by doing that, we might find out that they've got a very good reason for not doing the thing that we want them to do. For example, in this scenario, the horse has got a very good reason for not wanting to drink. And sometimes that's the case with our young people as well, is that actually when we find out enough about what's going on for them, we realise, okay, now this makes sense, and now I know how I can help you with it. But if we don't really understand that perspective, we're going to struggle. So to get a little bit more out of them, you can use the pros and cons of change. It's a worksheet. I can try and make sure this is sent out with the slides. You start off by getting them on board. Let's talk about the cons of making a change. Why don't you want to do this? Then we do the pros of making a change. What might be good about doing this thing? Then we do the pros of staying the same. Again, it's maybe some overlap, but it's usually a little bit different. Why do you want to keep doing what you're doing? What's important to you about that? And then the cons of staying the same. So we're being a bit cheeky here, but we want to end on the thing that's going to help them be thinking about the reasons why doing what they're doing now maybe isn't the best. So some example here, but the really important thing when we're doing this with someone is that we're getting them to come up with these reasons. They're used to us telling them what we think and thinking we know best. So we need to make sure that this is purely about them. Actually, although we're hoping they might change their mind and go with what we think is best, we want to come to this with genuine curiosity and just trying to understand what their point of view is. And by doing that, you're going to get a lot more information out of them that could actually be really helpful in the long run. I'm going to let you kind of read through this in your own time if you come back to the slides. And then finally, my last technique is the don't know dictionary. We call this rolling with resistance because resistance isn't always someone fighting you, really obviously. Sometimes it's someone shutting down, and you might get the dreaded, I don't know. We're asking all these great questions and they just keep responding, I don't know. You can use what we call the don't know dictionary. So we want to understand what that actually means for that young person, and then we can respond in a more helpful way. So this don't know dictionary was created by real life young people, and they came up with all the different things that they might mean when they say, I don't know. And it's things like, I do know, but I just don't want to tell you right now, or I don't see the point in this conversation, or I'm sick of being asked this by everyone, that kind of thing. Now, if we understand that that's what's going on with that person, we can then ask them questions in a different way. We can show that we empathize with them about this. We actually still care. So even if they still say, I don't know, we're not going to give up on them. And I use this in therapy all the time. I'll get my don't know dictionary out and I'll ask them, like, is any of these going on for you right now? Or do you genuinely just not understand the question? And that's fine too, because that gives me something I can work with as well. Okay, so very quick recap. We've talked about difficult conversations, the things that might come up for us emotionally, what might be going on behind the words for that young person and for ourselves. We've then thought about how we could bring compassion into those moments and make sure we're being self-compassionate as well. And maybe trying not to fix those difficult feelings straight away, like we might normally have that instinct to do. And then we've thought about emotional regulation, some brief strategies, having active listening and kind of being curious about what's going on for the young person, and then rolling with resistance as well. So not fighting them on these points, rolling with it and just trying to understand their point of view. So just some thinking points for you. From section 1, I want you to just try and pay attention to what might be going on for you in that moment, what might be going on for that young person, and trying to kind of pause and not get caught up in that normal vicious cycle that we might usually find ourselves experiencing. Maybe try and find one small avenue for self-compassion. I know it's hard, so just start small. Maybe try and notice those emotions and just ride that wave and kind of tolerate them for a bit longer, and trying to tolerate other people's distress without jumping to fix it straight away as well. And then finally, some of the strategies might be trying out some of those links about emotional regulation. When someone seems to be resisting you, try and roll with it, listen with curiosity, and maybe try out the don't know dictionary and the pros and cons of change with someone that you're trying to understand their reasons for why they're not doing what you think is best. Okay, so that's the end of the slides, but we've now got a bit of time to think about how this might apply to you and what you might take from this training. So I think if we maybe stop the recording now, and then we'll go, for those of you who have got time,